afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of Let's Talk Crap. I hope you're excited because I am. I'm not even going to give an introduction this week because we are continuing the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago with Patricia and Shaloma, co-founders of WOCC, WOCC, Women of Color in Cannabis. So without further ado, let's bring them on out and continue the conversation.
Hello, let's talk crap.
Hello, Irmani.
How are you?
Yes. How are you today?
I'm good. A little tired. I won't lie because that's life.
Yes.
But I'm good. Really good. How are you?
We're good. We're excited for part 2. We have a lot of information to share. Yeah, we're really excited.
I'm so hyped. So last week we left off with a lot of information. If you haven't seen last week's episode, I highly suggest that you go back and watch it. We talked about some of the Canna sessions. As I pull up my notes, give me.
Do your thing.
Yes,
it was a lot.
We talked about the missions and the goals of WOCC. We talked about some of the policy changes, and some of those policy changes are actually on WOCC's fun little tips, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah. So
all of the. Yes, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So they're not in the store yet, but what Irmani is talking about, what we're really excited about, are our crutch cards that we call Higher Knowledge, and it has what we think are the most important information that everybody should know about legalization. So if you haven't and you want to know what those top 5 things are, go back, watch last week's episode, and learn about those top 5 highlights for New York legalization.
Yes.
Absolutely. So that's for last week. That's our recap. That's our mini recap. All right, guys. Let's get straight into the new information. I think we need to continue discussing some legalization and some other policies, as well as demystifying some common myths that we have about the legalization, about weed in general, especially now that it's going to be legal, now that it is legal, and just general myths that are out there for people. And what are some other things we want to talk about? A little bit more about the Canna sessions. I want to actually see how the last one went, which was Backyard Buds. And let's just have the conversation flow naturally. Yeah. So let's get into some of these myths. What are some myths that you guys have heard about legal weed?
Okay. That it wouldn't be as potent as the legacy market cannabis that we're used to smoking, rolling, vaping, putting in a bong, however you choose to do it. And we can say that's not true, right? In fact, my personal experience,
mine too.
Going to California and trying legal weed, I'd say it's the opposite. It's way more potent than what most people, I should say. I think now there's definitely, as you mentioned, a shift. So I see a lot more people, deciding to buy higher grade, if they can't get access to it, I don't know how they do it. Legal weed that may have been, I don't know, not exposing myself for others, but there are ways to get it, and some people get it and they have this similar experience of saying it is a lot different from, the kush or the sour, and also options, right? Yeah. I know this isn't a myth, but one thing I do want to speak to is the variety and option that you can now get, right? So now you're getting different strains. You're also getting more hybrid strains, which if you're someone who is thoughtfully consuming and is someone who finds themselves really vibing with a hybrid strain, now having that opportunity to knowingly purchase that product is definitely a benefit. What other?
Go ahead. I have a quick question though about this myth and this that it's not as potent. Do you know where the weed that dispensaries are going to be able to sell comes from?
So for the New York market, it's going to have to be in the New York area. So we do currently, remember there was a medical program that's been up and running for some years, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what they're allowing is, obviously that's an opportunity, but they're also, and something we want to talk about, and this can be a great segue, is the types of licenses. So one of the types of licenses is growing. So there's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people who want to get into the cannabis industry, but don't necessarily want to open a dispensary or a lounge. They can get into growing. So it has to be in the New York area. If it's not what's already been here through medical, it's going to be a lot of new growers that are getting licenses.
Good. That's good to know. So other myths that we've heard.
I have another one.
What about, you have another one?
Yeah, that it makes you unmotivated or lazy.
Oh.
So I'm Jamaican, right? And everyone automatically assumes that like all Jamaicans smoke weed, everyone's pro cannabis, and it's like I am living testament to anyone out there. So I guess it's two myths, right? Not all Jamaicans smoke weed, right? It was a big point of contestation between my parents and I why I decided to wake up one day and smoke weed, right? They were not very happy about it because of that second myth. They associate it with being unmotivated, with being what they say is wayward, and just what are you doing with your life, right? They assume, similar to like traits of alcoholism, right? That's the only thing that's going to be on your mind is purchasing weed, smoking weed, and that was your whole life, right? And once again, personal testament, that is not the truth. I am highly productive when high. I mean, I'm sending emails, I'm responding to emails, I'm populating my calendar, I'm working on my to-do list. And I've met so many others in the cannabis industry who are also highly productive, highly efficient. It's, don't get me wrong, there is the cool customer in cannabis, which that's what I call them, cool customers, I don't judge. But there's also the other side of the coin, people who get shit done, whether you wear a suit or not. We've seen super stuffy professional men and women who you would have no idea consume cannabis. And they're like, oh yeah, I've been smoking for like half of my life. So it's definitely not a one size fits all.
So actually, quick question on that end, because, and I'm not sure if my internet's cutting out a little bit, I'm having a little bit of trouble, but there is a difference between recreational usage and medical usage. Correct. Would you say that for yourself, being highly functional, is that more of a medical thing, or is it still recreational for you? And what do you think, how do you think that like plays into other things? I don't know. That's the end of the question. But
I think for everybody consuming, and what a lot of, cannabis lobbyists and people like ourselves try to do is say, the plant is medicine, period, right? Even the drug dealer who's on the street, who's rolling up every day of his life, unbeknownst to him, that is his medicine, right? He is dealing with PTSD from living in a, underprivileged, underserved community. God knows how many people he's witnessed, die, get arrested. God knows how many times he's probably been arrested, right? No one knows his socioeconomic status. No one knows that he's the breadwinner for a 13-person family. No one knows, right? So I say for everyone consuming cannabis, it is medicine. It's a plant. It grows from the earth. So everyone is medicating, and it's not a bad thing, right? It's not an opioid. You're not going to lose. Well, some people lose weight. So I'm not going to just blanket say what everyone's experience with the plant is, but it is a plant. It is medicine, and it is a useful pathway to alleviate a lot of things, not just PTSD, not just anxiety, but inflammation of the joints. People use topicals, so creams and lotions for, achy bones and breaks. I'm like, yeah, okay. So yeah, we definitely say for ourselves, but also for the larger community, it's both. It's a little bit of recreational, but it's also a little bit of medicinal as well.
But I think that also speaks to the another myth, right? That cannabis weed is a gateway drug.
Yes.
Like that speaks to that myth. When we even have to ask the question about whether or not it's recreational or medicating, it's not a drug, because it's a plant, right? If prohibition didn't happen and they didn't criminalize the plant, we would never even be having this conversation. But it was only criminalized because they wanted to criminalize Black and brown people. Right. And so it's a
people. I was just about to say there's a history of the fact that the plant itself comes from it comes from places of color, Mexico, Latin America, South America. As soon as there was an opportunity for a group of color to grow or use that plant to prosper, it became criminalized. Yeah. And maybe, that's my take on the history of it, but
yeah, definitely a big misconception. And like Pat said, had that not occurred, that policing, that vilifying of the plant and the consumers, and the fear of race mixing was also a big motivation, we would have never had this lens on cannabis. And it would have been a discussion, I think a very different discussion. And like Pat said, people wouldn't have to make a choice between saying I'm recreational or medicinal. It would be like anything else. We buy each other roses.
Right. We buy each other weed.
Exactly. Like, I would like to think that it would have been a different conversation had that not happened.
I like that you say that, because
I 100% agree.
I love getting weed for presents. Like, who doesn't?
Sorry, continue.
Who doesn't? Yeah, I think those are like the largest myths that we personally hate, but still persist and will persist until people have conversations like this and people are willing to, you know, kind of put themselves on Front Street and say, hey, I consume, and prior to this, you thought that I was a very capable human being. So does that now change? Really having people wrestle with the thoughts and the preconceived notions that they may have, and really realizing that it's really just senseless.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this leads into another myth too. I think on my end especially about, you know, the history, the race, the cultural, you know, the cultural background of the plant. There's an idea that I've heard from some people that the government, now that it's legal, will tamper with. And we sort of talked about this as far as potency, but now that it's, you know, considered legal as a drug, that there is some sort of tampering that the government might do. Do you think that's true, or do you think
we don't trust the government? And we don't trust the government for anything else. Why would we trust the government when it comes to our weed, right?
Can I interject?
You want to talk about homegrown? Go ahead.
Well, you can do homegrown. I'm going to do another thing.
Interject. Go ahead.
Okay. You'll do homegrown. I'll do the other thing. What I was going to say is we trust the growers, right?
Yes.
Something that we're really happy about in the licensing is micro growers, right? So it's going to be small scale. It's not going to be those large farms that we hear about in California, or those converted prisons that are like tons of acres, right? So it's going to be, we don't trust the government, but we trust one another, right? We trust our community members. And if the licensing process goes as intended, it should be people like you, Irmani, people like us, and other people who are going to be able to grow the cannabis that will be sold in these dispensaries. So less government tampering, but I think what people may be referring to is government involvement, which is definitely going to happen because it's a regulated market, right? So they're going to test it. They might provide potency guidelines, like you can't do something crazy like 99% THC, but will they be able to take tons of packaged cannabis, play with it, put it back on the ship, not on the ship, but put it back on a truck and then send it to the dispensary? Not so much, right? What we do want to be aware of are MSOs, right?
Yes.
So maybe we don't.
What's an MSO?
And for anyone who doesn't know, I didn't know for a while, MSO is a multi-state operator. Yes. So they have a dispensary in California. They might have one in Denver. They might have one in Seattle. All of the legal states that's been legal for quite some time, they may have like a dispensary, right? So you may have that lens of being a little scared of that. And I say it's a respectable fear, because we all know with big box things, think of Walmart, think of McDonald's, anything, the quality of product can degrade with, overconsumption, right? When you're trying to produce as much as you can. But once again, I go back to micro businesses, micro growers, right? Instead of going to that chain dispensary, why don't you go to that mom and pop dispensary that's opened up by someone in your community? Because 9 times out of 10, they're working with a micro grower. But there's also a second option.
So that second option is, and which was in the MRTA in the bill that was just passed, is home grow. We all got home grow in this bill. Every single adult 21 and over gets to have 6 plants at home, right? 3 grows and 3 adults. And you can have up to 10. So basically in one home, 2 adults. If there are 3 of you, your guys are going to have to divide it up share the plant, but you can have a maximum of 10 plants at home. Right. And so that's where we talk about doing a cooperative, where as a community, you're actually selling the weed that you're growing to your community. And so that takes big business out of it. It takes these MSOs out of it and the registered organizations out of it. Right. And it keeps the money in the community. And that was a big part of the bill and why it took so long for it to pass, because advocates and everyone who wanted this to be legal, especially Crystal People Stokes, it had to be done right in order for it to be done. And if that meant waiting one more year, which is what we thought, because we thought 2020 was going to happen, but it was a year that wasn't, right? So we had to wait 2 years, but it happened, and it happened right. And that's what was important to all of us, because if it happened and it did not include reinvestment in our communities, reinvestment in communities that have been decimated by the war on drugs, right? Where families are in jail, where individuals are now sitting there watching television about legal weed, right? While they're incarcerated for that. So it was also important that in that bill, automatic expungement of marijuana convictions was a must. And if we were not going to get that, that also wasn't going to happen, right? And so homegrown, we got that.
If I could piggyback off that. So you can do homegrown, right? But types of licensing, once again, we said growing, but like Pat mentioned, co-ops. So for those who might have not caught what Pat said, that's a different type of licensing, right? So I think there's about 7 or 8 different types of licensing. So you can be your grower, you can do your co-ops, you can have a consumption lounge, consumption lounge is a unique opportunity for those who want to be more business minded in the industry, but don't want to undertake the regulation that is growing or that is owning a dispensary, because those two are your big buckets as far as government hands, as far as compliance, as far as large uptake to actually start. Not to say that you won't need a lot of capital to start a consumption lounge, but as far as the regulation and that real heavy, paperwork that you're going to have to do, it's definitely going to be for your growing license and your dispensary license. But like Pat said, also co-oping, also the consumption lounge, delivery. So that's you can have up to 25 employees if you have that delivery license. So you can employ 25 of your people, right, to deliver product. Yeah. So there's a lot of different
people love.
Yes.
So people love home delivery.
Yes, of being able to sit in your home, order your weed, and it comes to your home, right?
It's like taking Weed Maps, which is an app if anybody doesn't know, and actually making it for the community, for your local people.
Yes,
exactly. So there's a variety of different licenses that people can attempt, but that's not going to happen for quite some time.
Let's talk about that.
So before we started, there was a question that was like, for people who are interested, did they kind of miss the boat, right? And we're very, very, very excited to tell you, you have not missed the boat.
Not at all.
After having some, conversations with, members very close to the legalization game, to actually writing the bill, we found out that it is a modest estimate to not expect to see licensing before 2023. Right. And that might be like a soft blow to a lot of people, because like ourselves, when legalization happened at the end of March, we definitely thought there would be, maybe some possible appointments for the Office of Cannabis Management, who is going to be the governing ruling body to make sure licensing is happening, equity thresholds are being met, reinvestment, et cetera, right? We definitely thought we had some updates by July 1st, right? I think a lot of us in the industry really thought that at least the licensing process would begin maybe top of 2022, right? But at least by the end of 2022, that it have been some lottery or some process, applications or licensing standards have been circulated, and now it's just waiting for applications and reviewing. And that's not what's going to happen, right? But this is why it's not disheartening, right? Most of us, right, we don't come from, wealthy families that can give us, $100,000 seed fund, right? What we're going to be looking for is loans, right? If we're being open and honest and clear, right? Also, something that the bill establishes as well as possible funding for small businesses as well, or people who are going to be attempting licensing, so that they can afford those startup costs, right? But if anyone knows and has applied for a loan in the past, you need A1 credit, right? Yeah. You need a history of a sound financial history, right? You need your tax records to be legit. So rather than looking at the next 2 years like a missed opportunity, or, what are we supposed to do? Twiddle our thumbs. It's the opposite. It's time to get highly active and busy. Yes. It's time to
it's time to get prepared.
Exactly. It's time to get prepared. It's time to make sure that your house is sound, that you have good credit, that you're paying your credit card bills on time. In fact, you want to use the next 2 years.
So that when 2023 hit,
exactly.
You're good. Just go in. You're ready.
Exactly. So we're telling people, do not, as we're having this conversation and we're circulating the information that we were told, basically telling people that they're going to have to hold off a little bit on their goals, their 5-year plans might have to change just a little bit. it's a really good opportunity to get educated. And what was just shared on screen is if you are in New York and you are interested, please try to attend the Lunch and Learn with the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of information on next steps on how to get yourself most prepared, and just probably doing an overview of everything we're discussing now, but really getting to know what the bill is all about, because it's a very long bill. And like we said, there's about 7 or 8 licenses, and I think we only discussed about 6 of them because we're forgetting the other 2, so we do apologize.
It's okay.
But there's a lot of opportunities to get into the industry. So don't look at this 2 years as as a detriment. Think of it as like a blessing in disguise, for us, because we can really, our people struggle with good credit. Let's be honest, so this is the opportunity to get your shit together. It's also your opportunity to talk to your friends and family. Do we want to start a co-op? Yes or no? Do we want to do delivery, right? It's really the opportunity to start having these discussions. So on day 1, you're prepared with a game plan, as opposed to waiting until the next round of licensing and missing the opportunity to really get in on the first go around.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't even have words. I just agree.
Yes.
I think I want to address the comment that was actually placed below a couple of minutes ago, that you have to be 21 to use lead. You have to be 21. Do you think that, and this is a thing that I know a lot of people, going back to the myths really quickly, a lot of people think that, especially with a drug like alcohol, having that legal age sort of encourages underage use sometimes. Do you think that there will be an issue with underage usage?
There will not be an increase. There will not be an increase in underage use because cannabis is legal in New York. If the under 21 individual is going to smoke, they were going to smoke before it was legal, right? In New York. That's just real. What we want regulation because we want to know what we're smoking, right? So in the neighborhood where I live, I talk to the people, I speak to the young people in the neighborhood about weed, right? About everything. And so I was walking to the laundromat the other day, and there's a young man out there smoking. And I asked him, I was like, hey, what you smoking? He was like, weed? I was like, no, but what kind of weed? What are you smoking? He was like, I think he said Gorilla Glue. I said, oh, okay. Why are you smoking it? He said, because it's good. I told him, I educated him about what type of cannabis he's smoking, right? And what it does for you, or what it's supposed to do for you if it's Gorilla Glue. I say if because we need testing. We require testing in order for us to know what it is that we are consuming. In the same way that when it went legal in California, because of testing, they had to dump a lot of shit, right? There's a lot of weed that had to get dumped because it was bad. And where did it go? Right here in New York, right? Because yes, they're supposed to get rid of it, but who's going to throw away money when you can actually just ship it to New York, where no one gives a fuck about what the hell you're smoking? And
it's going to get sold anyway.
And it's going to get sold anyway. Yeah, because it's Cali Loud, right? It's from Cali. That's all you need to know.
You see the problems of, things like laced marijuana in college communities often, in smaller, not even in New York City, but often in other, in college communities, in the SUNY system. As someone who was in the SUNY system, I can say that is something that everybody knows.
I went to Davidson.
I went to Oneonta.
Okay, girl, upstate, cold. I just want to say 2 things about do we think that legalization is going to encourage underage use? One, when we look at countries, and so we're not talking about America anymore, so bear with me. But we look at other countries that have open legalization for drugs. In general, you see the rate of children experimenting with that drugs is so insignificant, right? It's nothing comparable to countries like us that are really hard on policing people using drug use, right? And if I'm lying, I'm dying, but I'm not. So if you want, do research into, I'm trying to think of the countries like Brazil. Amsterdam, like Brazil, like Norway. They have an open drug policy. They're like, go ahead, do it. And you see oftentimes kids don't do it because it's not exciting to do something that's legal, right? Secondly, there's actually have been studies in legal markets to answer that very question. So they did a study in California. I believe they did one in Denver as well to test that very thing. are kids consuming younger now that cannabis is legal? And there was no statistical change. Like Pat said, people who were going to do it have been doing it. But did they see any kind of uptick in, persons from 15 to 17 or 12 to 14? They didn't, right? So I think once again, that speaks to your previous question of the myth. And it's like, yeah, that's a myth. That's not true. It's not people on the street throwing nugs at kids. Cannabis is expensive, okay?
Anybody giving
No one's
it
giving that out. No one's preying on children and passing out, weed to get them loosey-goosey, because that's also not something that's going to happen where they lose their faculties, right?
I also know a lot of smokers who, when they do smoke in public, they're very cautious to not smoke around children.
Exactly.
They're very much, they respect. I can't speak for everyone, but I know a lot of smokers who do respect the fact that, children exist.
Exactly.
When you said, and it's like when we talk about when kids come into the picture, it's always a reminder to me of why regulation is required.
Snaps of agreement.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it. And so for the individuals that are arguing about regulation, don't ever go to a dispensary. You don't have to smoke that. At all. You never have to touch it, right? Get it from your guy. Get it from your lady. Get it from who you're connect.
Support your community.
It's important, right? You definitely want to support your community. Yes. Okay.
100. Seeing that comment. I wanna. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Lo. I wanna actually jump into something. Because testing, right? We know that regulation and testing is important. Is this a job that WOCC can help people get into?
Oh, definitely. So we're really excited because, as we mentioned last session, is that in 2020 we launched our Canna Careers program. So not only can we help you if you're a scientist, but we can help you if you're interested in getting into cannabis in any part of the industry. So what we do is every month we tackle a different part of the industry. And when I say tackle, we talk about what are the types of experiences that they're looking for, right? What type of background. We also talk about keywords to put on your resume. We also talk about things to mention in your cover letter, how to market yourself during an interview. And we do that per sector. So the keywords for cultivation are not going to be the same keywords we give you for manufacturing, right? So we're really giving you a lot of information into how to get into the industry. So that is completely free. Like I said, it's on our website, which is woc.world. That's going across the banner right there. And you're going to go to the Canna Careers site, right? And we have the entire 2-hour footage of the session accessible for free. But we also have that one-sheeter, which you can download. It's a PDF that has the keywords for your resume, the keywords for your cover letter, and how to pitch yourself during, an interview. We also do free resume workshops. So if you're literally like, you know what, this is my resume from when I was working, for Starbucks. What do I do? You come to us, you book a free session, and you're going to work with an actual cannabis staffing agent. Like, this is what they do. They work with companies to hire talent for cannabis companies. So they're going to take that Starbucks resume, and by the time you walk away, you'll have a
cannabis resume.
A cannabis resume. Yes. So you'll have a bud tender resume, or you'll have a compliance resume, right? Or you'll have a cultivation resume. Whatever it is, whatever position you're looking to go for, we can help you. So for the first, I'll give you we only had 5 sessions. So the first one was cultivation. So basically, if you want to grow, then we did compliance. So if you want to work in the office on the back end of things, if you want to tell people, this is the law, this is how you follow it, that's compliance. We did retail. So if you want to work in a dispensary, that's an entire session. We also did manufacturing. So if you literally want to be the person, putting together this product, that, putting together the large packages, shipping it to and from, that's the topic. And then we did a review. So if you're that person who's like, I am not trying to watch any of those sessions, I just want the highlights, the big buckets, you can watch the session 5, which is a review of the first 4 sessions. And we go over all the highlights to get you prepared for either of those 4 parts of the industry. And we have plans to tackle all the other parts too. So we're going to do CBD, we're going to do hemp, we're going to do marketing, we're going to do legal, because literally anything you think of, cannabis is going to need it. They're going to need lawyers. They're going to need marketers. They're going to need packaging. They're going to need artists. They're going to need musicians for these consumption lounges. Like they're literally going to need everything. So event planners. So telling yourself
is an industry.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So telling yourself I don't have experience, that's not an excuse. It's a new industry. No one has experience. So let's help you figure out how to get to the industry.
That's true. Yeah. I'm so upset that I have to like stop.
We're yeah. Wow. That went so fast.
Like there is so much information, and seriously, you guys, if there's any questions, anything at all, please visit woke.world. Yes. The information is there. I am so fortunate to have a membership, and so I can access some of these former videos. I can tell you for a fact that it is like it's an encyclopedia. It's just wisdom. It's pure wisdom on the website. So please check it out if you're interested. Maybe we'll have another conversation. Maybe we won't. We'll see how it goes. But you know, I feel like we should hang out in person at some point.
Yes. You're not far from us. You're not far.
I want to do 2 shameless plugs if we have some time. So we're having an in-person comedy show. It is going to be outside because we understand COVID. Unfortunately, the last time it rained, so we had to move indoor. But it is going to be outside. We're going to have vendors. It is 420 friendly, and it's an awesome time. So if you're available, that is happening next Thursday. Doors open at 7:30. Show starts at 8 o'clock. So visit our Instagram at _WOCC if you want to attend that. And then if you can't, we're having our in-person Spliffnik. It is an annual event. We meet up in Prospect Park. We give away a bunch of goodies just because we're so appreciative of all our community members. So it's a time for us to meet you guys in person, but also give you guys some good treats and just meet. We usually play games and just vibe out. And that's in Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And that's going to be the last Saturday of the month. So I think that's the 28th at 2 p.m. So you have 2 options to meet us in person and to hang out and have us meet you. And thank you guys.
That's amazing. I'm definitely going to do my best to make one of those.
Yes.
I'm free at 7:30 next weekend. So next Thursday. So. Thank you for coming on tonight. Thank you for continuing this discussion. It was a pleasure. Thank you. I guess that's all for now, right?
Next time, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Next time, Brooklyn. The block is hot. We're always going to be talking here on Let's Talk Crap. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye.